because I know it's the mass exodus to holiday destinations and to go home for the holidays. So please just arrive alive and get there safely. But if you're not, and you're going to be tuned into your television and watching social media, I can promise you it's going to be lit, because tomorrow the country holds its breath as the ANC decides not only on its next leader, but also the future of our country. We will finally know which faction is to win the soul of this once majestic liberation movement. I'm not someone who scares easily, but I am scared, very scared. These aren't my words, okay? I'm not saying these things. These are the words of our next guest, Melanie Verwoerd. Born Melanie Fourie, she married Wilhelm Verwoerd, the grandson of Dr. Hendrik Verwoerd. You know him, architect of apartheid. Melanie joined the ANC at a very young age, became a politician, was South African ambassador to Ireland, is a former ANC MP, and Melanie is now a political analyst. In her words, as I said a bit earlier, said, I am scared, very scared. Sounds a little bit ominous. Melanie, good morning to you. It's good to have you.
I think I should just say for the Verwoerd's sake, it's now an ex-husband, unfortunately.
Oh, is it an ex-husband?
It is. So the Verwoerds are quite adamant that I should say that.
Okay, good.
Especially if I talk ANC politics.
I'm sure. I am absolutely sure. We'll keep the family happy. This sounds very serious. I mean, do you believe that that the country is at the foot of a potential crisis right now?
Look, we're at a crossroads. This is not the ANC of 1994 in many respects, not economically, not in terms of racial relations anymore, not in terms of value systems, not of corruption. The regime we have seen for the last, most probably 10 years or so, is not the ANC of Madiba, I believe, or of Walter Sisulu, or, of Oliver Tambo. And the problem is, it's not just that it's an ideological change, it is that it has a very negative impact on the country. We've seen the economy going down, racial tensions definitely increasing, and the real sadness is that the ANC has not been able to deliver for the majority of poor in this country. And of course, that can't be sustained. Now, of course, there are big legacies from apartheid. We can't deny that. And not everybody has played game in this whole thing. Business hasn't necessarily come to the table enough. But the point is the ANC has not delivered either to the extent that they have to. And all of that creates a very dangerous space where we are now. Yeah. The country needs to grow economically, otherwise we're going to be in trouble. And it's difficult to see that if the right side doesn't win, I mean, they hate that we use that language, but if the right side doesn't win this weekend, it's hard to see that we will be on an upwards trajectory, most probably more downwards.
And it's quite interesting that you say the right side, because, when we're talking about this race for the heart of the ANC and the leadership of the ANC, and everybody is calling it too close, and that it is so. Really, these factions are there. They exist, and it depends on what side you're on. Yeah. We're going to talk about these factions now, but what I want to know from you is, if either side lose, I mean, can they work together?
Look, I think what we'll most probably find in the end, not necessarily because of a deal that is made, that's possible as well, but I don't think that's really what we're talking about. I think the way the nominations look at the moment, we're going to see a mix. I think we're most probably going to see Gwede Mantashe there, we're most probably going to see Paul Mashatile there, but we also know that we're most probably going to see David Mabuza in the top 6. So already you've got 2 camps there. Not so sure about the SG yet. That's very close as well at the moment if you look purely at the nominations. And then it's a question of who is president. So I think by nature, they will have to work together. Okay. I think they won't have a big choice. Now, look, everybody's talking unity. Also last night on the SABC, Cyril Ramaphosa said, it was all about unity and how we work together, and we don't need to be friends, but we're still comrades. I think they can work together. Will some people leave if they're not happy? Yes, it happens every time. Is that fatal for the ANC? Most probably not.
So breakaway parties threatening the majority of the ANC and all that talk, should we take that seriously?
I'm not so sure about that, especially if the top 6 looks like I've just been saying to you. I'm not sure that that's going to happen. Yeah. I think you might see some people leaving. And I think if you, for example, find a complete outright Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma win, so if it's a completely her slate winning, I think yes, then we might see quite a significant group of people breaking away. But then the question remains, who will lead them? I don't believe Cyril Ramaphosa at this stage is really feeling like leading a breakaway party. He's born into the ANC. I think if he doesn't win, I'm not convinced that he will lead a breakaway party. I think, like he even suggested last night, gently, that he might like to just go back to farming.
Let's have a look now at the leadership of the ANC,
Sure.
because you've got some interesting views and predictions. And I'm going to say it up front that your prediction is still Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma for president.
It is. Well, let me put it this way.
Break it down for us.
It is very, very close, the race. It really is close. And if you look on paper, if you look at the nomination process, now also remember, the nomination process is only an indication to us. The ANC election has never been won on the back of a spreadsheet, never. So the nominations give us a sense of where it's going, but it doesn't give us 100% accurate figures, partly because we also don't know exactly which are the big branches with the more delegates, which are, exactly whether people will stay with the mandate their branches have given them. We know they don't, and so on. If you go just on the nominations and you make certain assumptions, like, for example, that the unity slate will come towards Dlamini-Zuma, the guys in Mpumalanga, and you make certain assumptions around the leagues, then it's incredibly close. It's a couple of hundreds, give or take, towards Cyril. It's never been that close. The closest have been, I think, about 2,000 separate.
Yeah.
So that's really close. And remember, if you want to swing, say even 600 votes, all you need to do to get equal is you need to bribe, convince, encourage half of that, so 300 people, to go the other side again. That's not difficult to do. So in my view, it's incredibly close. I mean, everybody agrees that it's very close, but in my view, I think if it is that close to call, I think then you have to go and say, well, which side is more likely to have more money to convince ANC cadre? Which side has more to lose? And that always has been, for me, the bottom line. Cyril Ramaphosa is fighting for a job. The Zuma camp are fighting for their lives, because they know it's very likely that under a Ramaphosa win, that they might end up in jail, or even more importantly, their children might end up in jail. And I think that when you fight for your life versus whether you fight for a job is very, very different.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we talk about how things can shift and how things can change, today, until those votes come in, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's now who has, and there's talk. There is so much talk at the moment of vote buying, sabotage, Russian involvement, those brown envelopes and suitcases full of money, and meetings held behind closed doors. I mean, these are all things that are spoken about. And the great chatter with the ANC leadership election is that it is being rigged so that NDZ does win this. And this is chatter, it's not a fact. Has Cyril Ramaphosa really got a fair chance of being the leader of the ANC? And I mean a fair chance as in let the process happen without that rigging.
Is the playing fields equal? Most probably not. I don't think so. For that reason that I said earlier, just because the other side has got so much to lose, and therefore that they will do anything. However, we must never underestimate the individual branch delegates. It's definitely not true that the majority, maybe the majority, but certainly not all the delegates are bribable. I don't believe that. There are still a lot of people there with commitment. So I think I definitely don't think the playing field is equal, and that's most probably what concerns me, and why I'm still erring slightly more on the Dlamini-Zuma side, is because if Ramaphosa was ahead now with 60 or 70% of the nominations, I think then we could have said, you can't swing that, you can't rig that, you can't swing that, you can't bribe that. But he's not, it is so close, and therefore I think most probably it means the playing field's not 100% equal.
Yeah. Just finally on a closing note, I mean, we're just hearing so many stories coming. Helen Suzman Foundation announcing that it is going to be suing the president and the Guptas for 5 billion rand. The DA say that they're filing charges of perjury against the president. I mean, these cases are really, they're big, they're massive. These are things that we don't want to be seeing at our current president of the ANC and of the country. What does this have on, what bearing does all of this have on our country if the Zumas remain in power post this conference?
The irony for me is that these cases most probably will make no difference on the conference outcome over the weekend. I don't think that's going to affect it. If anything, it most probably will make the Zuma camp more determined to win, because they know there's a lot more at stake with the whole NPA boss being appointed by possibly Cyril Ramaphosa, etc. But the important and the positive thing about all of this is that it shows that our system is holding, that the centre is holding, that the judiciary is holding, that we are going into, that we live in a country where anybody can take the president to court. We all watch it live on TV. Everybody talks. Everybody is a legal expert these days. We all understand a lot of what's going on in the law. That is a very positive thing for our country. And maybe to get back to your first question, does that then mean that we're in an amazing crisis? No, not yet, because the important things like the media, you guys, as well as the judiciary, is holding in our other Chapter 9 institutions. And that, if anything, will get us through this very difficult patch that we're in at the moment.
Melanie Verwoerd, what a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for having been our guest here on the programme, and we'll look to see what happens. Perhaps next week, Wednesday, we'll see if all of that is coming true, and predictions, which are very hard to predict, are there on the table. Melanie Verwoerd is a former ANC MP and former SA ambassador to Ireland, sharing thoughts on the ANC National Elective Conference that kicks off tomorrow.